This is a great event. It's an important event. The event, Northside Votes Mayoral Forum, questions from the people. We're pleased to be in the Minneapolis Urban League. We thank them for hosting this facility. I want to acknowledge, first of all, though, the people that made this event happen. These are the presenters, the organizations that have assembled us tonight to talk to the candidates. They include the Harrison Neighborhood Association, Heritage Park Neighborhood Association, Northside Neighborhood Council, the Lao Assistance Center, Neighbors Organizing for Change, the West Market District, the Minneapolis Urban League, and of course, my newspaper, Insight News, and also MTN. We thank all of the partners for making this event happen tonight. So here are the instructions and the rules. We're going to have candidate introductions first. I understand today that Frey will be here and join us late, so we'll start to tell them. Also, Representative Ray Dean is not able to come, and what he did do is send written responses to the questions. I have those here. So I'm going to read these for Ray Dean, your permission. And I'll try to read them with a sense of his attitude that you feel that he's delivering to you. So I'll try to do that. And then we're going to have 2 minutes per answer. Each person gets 2 minutes per question. There are 5 great questions already submitted by you, the community. We'll ask those questions one by one after the introduction. If we have time at the end, we'll open up for questions from the audience. But that's the general plan. Everybody in agreement with that? Can everybody hear me, first of all? Okay, everybody in agreement with the plan? Okay. I'm from the old school. If you don't like something, you don't like it enough, say something. I'm not afraid of mixing it up. So if you feel like mixing it up, mix it up. That's what we do in North Minneapolis, okay? And I think our candidates here are looking for excitement as well. We don't want to bore you. We want to have this be a charged and engaged atmosphere and environment. We want you to gain what you came to gain, get what you came to get. We want you to say what you want to say to these men and women who want to lead you and serve you in the city of Minneapolis. So let me introduce who is here, first of all. Dr. Nekima Levy-Pounds. She's a lawyer, professor, and an activist. Next to her, Al Flowers, a community builder. I call him the field marshal for North Minneapolis. Next to Al Flowers, Mayor, the Honorable Mayor Betsy Hodges. And next to Mayor Hodges, Aswar Rahman, the filmmaker and founder of Minneapolis. As I said, Representative Frey will not be here. He submitted his documents, and Tom Hawk will also not be here today. So I'm going to begin with the first question. The first question actually is introduction. Start with you, Nekima. Introduce yourself 2 minutes and why you want to be the mayor of Minneapolis.
All right, can everybody hear me okay? Yes. All right, so I'm Nekima Levy-Pounds, and it's a privilege and an honor to be here with you all today. As Al McFarland stated, I am a civil rights attorney. I also taught law for 14 years. I'm the most recent past president of the Minneapolis NAACP. I sit on a number of different boards throughout the Twin Cities, and I've been fighting for justice within 2 years of arriving in Minnesota back in 2003. Once I saw the racial disparities, while I was a law professor, I decided to do something about it, and that was to start a civil rights legal clinic where I could bring my law students into the political arena at the city, the county, and the state level, both in Minneapolis and St. Paul, fighting for racial justice, equity, and equality. Some of my areas of specialty include pushing for policing reform, reform of the criminal justice system, pushing for the end of the war on drugs, and also focusing on economic justice. I don't think we talk enough about those issues. Often we're focused on crime, but not focused enough on the root causes of crime, which oftentimes have to do with people not having access to economic opportunity, losing hope, and not valuing self. And so if we want to have a more robust Minneapolis for everyone, we have to look at root causes of issues and not just symptoms, and place blame on the people who are experiencing those disparities. After my involvement in the occupation of the 4th Precinct after Jamar Clark was killed, something changed in me. And I said, listen, I'm tired of knocking on the doors of the powers that be, bringing sound policy solutions and asking them to make changes. It's time to become the powers that be, to begin to help influence what can happen in our city and to shift the paradigm. And that's why I want to be part of the next move. Thank you.
We have a timekeeper in front. Brother Nestor is here with a 1 minute, 30 second, and 10 seconds. So our candidates are seeing that. I'm seeing it. We'll try to put everybody on track today. Next, Al Flowers.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak before you. I'm running. This is a tough time in Minneapolis, I believe, for all communities. And trying to bring everybody together is tough, but that's what we have to do. You have to work with everybody. So I'm running to build collaboration. I already did. I'll build collaboration with building like the UBLA, it was United Black Legislative Agenda, but it was an agenda for all people of color, economically, for the Hmong community, the Latino community, the Native, the Somali community, and the African American community. We had some success with Senator Jeff Hayden and Senator Bobby Joe Champion, who's the senator in this district. We had some success bringing in over $70 million into this state, but a big portion of that to our community. And that's what I want to get out there. The message is out there. Some of the questions that we'll go in later talk to some of that effect about business, creating business, and how we're going to do that, how we're going to make it affordable for small business, dealing with a $15 minimum wage that people are talking about. So I got some ideas on affordable housing that, and I got those ideas right here, and we'll have them on the table in a minute as we do this discussion and see if we can get the city to go along and let the community lead themselves. We need to lead ourselves economically. And that's what I'm going to try to do in this campaign. I'm going to continue to try to tell the truth the whole time as we're running. We're going to talk about education. Economics is what we've been working on, and public safety, working with our juveniles and making sure that they don't get caught in the trap. I'm a father that experienced a daughter losing a daughter to gun violence. I'm a father that experienced a daughter that's going through struggle. So those are some of the things. And with my last 5 seconds, I'm going to take homage to a young girl who committed suicide when she was around some of the gun violence, and she committed suicide, but they don't talk about it, and nobody's talking about it. The papers ain't talking about it, but it's a young 15-year-old black girl. I don't care what happened. Nobody knows what happened yet. It hasn't been investigated, but the girl went home and hung herself. I talked to her mom, and her mom said it was okay for me to say that this is what's going on in our community, and it gets covered up. So if you don't know, her name was Christy Smith, 15-year-old. Don't let her down.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask the candidates to mind the time and try to keep your comments in the time that you allow. Mayor Hodges.
4 years ago, we as a community had a conversation about what our challenges are and what our strengths are and what we wanted to do to meet them moving forward. And in that conversation, I said, as mayor, I would be devoted to making sure we're just running the city well at the basic level, that we are growing and growing in the right way, which means we are focused on equity and making sure that everybody has an opportunity to contribute to and benefit from our prosperity and our growth. Knowing that we have some of the biggest gaps between white people and people of color in the entire country. Knowing that we have some of the biggest gaps on many levels in the entire country. And as mayor, I have been busy doing what I said that I would do. It is transformational change. Steeping the city's DNA in new ways of doing business, new ways of thinking, making sure that everybody is part of the conversation and everybody is considered in policy moving forward is a new way. And as a leader, I have helped us create transformation and gotten results. We are more than any other city in the country. We are doing more inside our police department, both to build public safety in this new way. It's not just law enforcement, it's law enforcement and community together. And build public trust moving forward, which is the only way that we can. There's no city doing more. But we also have a long ways to go. especially at a time when Donald Trump is president and he's coming after cities and he's coming after the people who live in cities, particularly our immigrant communities, our Muslim communities, women, LGBTQ folks, indigenous peoples, I could go on. We need a leader who has been and knows how to stand up to the bullies who are coming after our city while continuing to forge that path forward and making sure everybody in the city can succeed and do well. That is what I bring to the table as mayor, and I'm here tonight to have that conversation and to ask for your support for mayor.
Well, so as one of those Muslim immigrants, I have to say we don't need protection from Trump. We need protection from a city hall that has grown so apathetic, which is willing to spend tens of millions on a downtown park, but is not willing to expand tuition for your education. Not willing to invest in early childhood care, not willing to invest in jobs in Minneapolis. So I believe I will start with the city first, and then I'll worry about that orange pumpkin in the White House. Here's the thing. I was introduced as a filmmaker. Yes, film is one of my careers, but at the heart of it, I'm a small business owner in Minneapolis. My parents are small business owners. My sister is a small business owner. So we came here when I was 6 years old. Minneapolis is all I know. We opened our store on Central Avenue. Then we lived on 42nd and Humboldt, right near the cemetery. And then we went to school in Minneapolis. We graduated from the University of Minnesota, and we opened our own businesses. And in the meantime, I worked for Mayor Ryback in his executing his child policy, in college awareness, making sure that every single child in Minneapolis has opportunity. I also work in crime prevention with the Minneapolis Police Department. And there we learned, the golden, the secret, open secret out there is that if you give people opportunity, crime goes down. Simple enough. And it's been proven over and over through data. So here's what I propose as mayor of Minneapolis. I propose that over 4 years, if we were to cut back some of those investments in downtown, if we weren't so obsessed with remodeling parks that are already fine, if we weren't spending tens of millions where they don't need to be spent, and if we invested that money in early childhood care, if we invest that money in expanding tuition-free higher education for every single Minneapolis public school student who needs it, and if we were to create jobs through investment in small businesses, in 4 years we'd be a much better city, we'd be a much happier city, and even though I just listed a lot of problems with our city, I will tell you this. There is nothing wrong with Minneapolis that can't be fixed with what's right with Minneapolis. Thank you.
Representative Frey Dean submitted his answers in writing, and I'm going to read his opening remark. I'll keep within the 2 minutes as well. I'm a lifelong Northsider. My family has lived here for 4 generations. I'm proud to represent North Minneapolis at the Capitol, along with Representative Lee and Senator Bobby Champion. Our community deserves direct attention from our city leadership, and that's why I am running for mayor. For decades, leaders have purposefully ignored and harmed Northsiders. Polluters like FERC and Northern Metals have left our air toxic and our kids with long-term health problems. Asthma rates on the north side are staggering. And even when there's a victory, like the Northern Metals settlement with the city, those who live here and are most affected were left out. On the north side, banks continue to act as predatory lenders, and check cash compensations reinforce the efforts to keep wealth out of black communities. Cops murder our brothers and sisters and then attack us when we express discontent. Those of us that live here can sense the frustration. Because of a lack of city leadership, our community has resolved to create our own solutions, organizing to shut down HERC, putting together resources to pay off people's mortgages when the recession hit, saving North High School, and starting a black-owned credit union to build community wealth. City leadership needs to acknowledge the power and determination of this community and stop trying to implement change without their input. I'm running for mayor of Minneapolis to be champion for reform, a city budget with reparations, and city leadership priorities to address the systemic inequity in our city. I'm running for mayor to build community wealth, regain affordable housing, establish accountable policing, and uplift people's health. That's Frey Dean, right on 2 minutes. So we've been joined by Jacob Frey. Doing the first round with a 2-minute introduction, so you're right on time. Your turn. Why do you want to be married?
It's the intro.
This is the intro.
Okay.
And you're right on time.
Well, I'm glad to be right on time. My apologies for being a little bit late. My name is Jacob Frey. And I'm running for mayor right now because at this point in time, I think more than ever, with the Donald Trump presidency and with gridlock at the state and federal legislature, we need a very visible and present mayor that's about getting results. Because at the end of the day, being in public service is not about being somebody, it's about doing something. And right now, there is so much we can do in this city, and specifically, a lot we can do in North Minneapolis. I mean, in North Minneapolis, we've had 100 years worth of redlining, 100 years worth of intentional segregation, 100 years worth of separation from one of the most vital assets, which is that riverfront, by a whole lot of heavy industrial, followed by a massive highway. This was intentional. This was intentional. Over time, it has resulted in disparity. It's resulted in health disparities. It's resulted in environmental injustices, and we can absolutely push back on it right now. And so, I'm running for mayor not just to talk about doing these things, but to actually make them happen. Over the last several years, I'm not under the false impression that every single person would agree with me, but they would agree that the things that I pushed for and promised would happen. They've happened. What we promised is that we were going to try and clean up the riverfront. We were going to make the air breathable for everyone. And about a year ago, I authored an ordinance. It's one of the first of its kind in the entire country. And what it said is that we were going to connect pollution to fees. So for every pound of pollution that was emitted into the atmosphere, especially here on the north side, you're now charged a fee in 1 year alone. In 1 year alone, it's resulted in about 6 million pound reduction worth of carbon and an 18,000 pound reduction of criteria pollutants, which is the really nasty kind, by the way, that give you, asthma and lead poisoning and forms of cancer. And so we can do even more now. We can do even more to push back on the wrongs of the past, and we can make a brilliant city for the future, and I would be honored to have your support.
Thank you. We go down to the first of the 5 questions that we, the community, have submitted. I'm going to start with you, Jay. You're on the roll. All right. Keep going. The first question. North Minneapolis is beginning to see displacement and gentrification across its neighborhoods, with booming development and the proposed light rail lines speeding up the process. What can the mayor do to assure North Minneapolis residents will not be forced to endure displacement from their homes or a gentrifying neighborhood?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to do is kind of define what we mean by gentrification, just to make sure we're all on the same page. What gentrification means to me is a displacement of both, an intentional displacement of both culture and community. And that is most definitely happening in several areas of the city, and specifically in North Minneapolis, as well as it's just across the river in Northeast. And yeah, we can do some things to push back on it. I think we need to be retaining naturally occurring affordable housing, and I think the city is in a position to step in even more so to bridge that gap between whatever constitutes the market rate and the affordable rate. Second, we've got about 350 some odd vacant parcels right now on the north side that are city owned. We have the ability, and we've been doing a little bit of this, we can do more. We have the ability to write down the price of those parcels, to make sure that it's going to people within the community, so that we're able to build generational wealth for the long haul. So, economic development is going to be good on the north side, just like it's good in the rest of the city. But when economic development occurs on the north side, one of the things that we need to make sure that happens is that wealth is then going back to the community that's been serving for so long. And these are things that we can work on, whether that's with the 350 parcels or that's on the riverfront. And by the way, some of these heavy industrial entities, as they transfer out of the city, that is a massive opportunity right now for jobs within the zip code, so that we can start doing this for the long haul.
Thank you. Nekima Levy-Pounds, same question. North Minneapolis is beginning to see displacement and gentrification across its neighborhoods, with booming development and the proposed light rail lines speeding up the process. What can the mayor do to assure North Minneapolis residents will not be forced to endure displacement from their homes or a gentrifying neighborhood?
Well, I would say number one, the mayor can be present. And I'm not giving a pass to the two of our opponents who are not here tonight. Today is my birthday. But I'm a Northside resident. I care about the North Side. I made the sacrifice to be here. So you need a mayor who will be present and who will show up no matter what is going on. So listen to the voices of the people. Part of the reason that gentrification and displacement are happening is because the powers that be often feel that people on the north side are expendable. Our voices do not count the same way in the ways in which people's voices count in Southwest Minneapolis, for example. The next mayor needs to bring an end to that. We need to make sure that we are listening to what the people have to say about the kinds of neighborhoods that they want to live in and the types of development that they want to see occur. It's absolutely ridiculous to have elected officials sitting on this panel talking about how to prevent gentrification in the future when they're in office right now and they haven't been able to do it. They do not have a plan in place to protect the people of North Minneapolis, and they do not have a strong connection to the people to understand what is happening with the development that's going on and how people are being pushed out into the inner ring suburbs who want to stay in Minneapolis but cannot afford to live there. Part of this has to do with actually having a vision for equity for our city, making sure we're listening to the people in terms of what they want to see happen, making sure we're holding slumlords accountable for how they treat people of color and our immigrant population, and making sure that they are not raising rents, which is something that we're seeing happening right now. And part of why that's happening, I would attribute, in part at least, to the 5.5% increase in property taxes that this current administration just agreed upon at a time in which we are struggling with matters of economic justice, gentrification, high rates of poverty and inequity in our community. So I will be a mayor who listens to the people and who makes sure that we're pushing for protection of the people, those who live and work in North Minneapolis, and not just those in the upper echelon and those whose voices they're used to listening to.
Thank you. Next, Aswar. North Minneapolis is beginning to see displacement and gentrification across the neighborhoods with booming development and the proposed light rail lines speeding up the process. What can the mayor do to assure North Minneapolis residents will not be forced to endure displacement from their homes or a gentrifying neighborhood?
Well, what we can do is work together. What I did is work with the NCRT, and that's an organization, that was a group of organizations, including the Urban League, where we sit here now. And we did a survey about what people wanted in North Minneapolis, about housing, about affordable housing. We did a survey, it's online, with Commissioner Mary Chenethal of the Minnesota Housing Finance Commission, working along with people like Jeff Watson, who's in the audience with City of Lake Community Land Trust, with Urban Homework. With what we did, we came up with the survey, we did the data, we worked with Pure, the University of Minnesota, to see what we can do different. And when I said earlier, I had a document, and it talks about all the things we can do as a city, and we can do these things on this paper right here. And my little grandson is back there, CJ, and if you can give him, CJ, them papers so he can pass this out. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about what we can do. I'm talking about what we're doing and what I'm doing right now. And I will pass them out to the 4 other candidates right here, and let's all do it together. We have to do it together, but these are things that we can do right now. It's right now. This is a document. I brought you down. I'm not going to say nothing. And it's got some stuff. My good friend Jacob Fry's here talking. And when we had other debates, you're talking about what you're going to do downtown and build it up. And now we get here and we talk about affordable housing. No, we got to talk about it all the time. I've been talking about it all the time. Did my time run out? I've been talking about it all the time, and I've been doing the work. So when we talk about affordable housing, I've been at the city for 15 years, running down there, working with Tom Stripe. I can name every person worked down at the city about affordable housing. I watched how they do the deal, and then when you stop talking, they do something different. They said they were going to sell houses in North for $100, and then they went, as soon as we stopped talking about it, they went up to $200,000. Anybody can tell you these things. So I did the work. I got the document right here. Some things we can do, and you can add on to it too, and that's how we're working together. And I will pass them to the candidates.
North Minneapolis is beginning to see displacement and gentrification across the neighborhood with booming development and the proposed light rail lines speeding the process. What can the mayor do to assure North Minneapolis residents will not be forced to endure displacement from their homes or a gentrifying neighborhood?
Well, the good news is investments happening. I think when we all drove in tonight, we saw that Thor is bringing its headquarters here. My husband's bringing his organization here. There is investment happening across North Minneapolis, which is what we have been working toward together as a community for some time. But the flip side is we have to make sure that as we invest in communities, the people who have been living there, who have been putting in the blood, sweat, and the tears to make sure that the investment can happen, that the community is successful and strong, can benefit from those investments, can stay and can continue to have great experiences and to keep their culture and their community there. So there are strategies that I've been employing and that we can employ as a city moving forward to do our best to make sure that that happens. Housing is a big piece of it. Yes, we want to create opportunities for market rate housing here. We don't want to take all affordable housing in North Minneapolis. That's what we learned as we came together to put together the Common Zone Bank. When we came together as a community and Northsiders came together at North High in the cafeteria and said, we are in this, what is our economic development plan, what is our education plan, what is our public safety plan? We have some resources to make those plans real. And so the housing strategies are incredibly important. So I invested in naturally available affordable housing strategy to help affordable housing stay affordable for the people who are in it. We get to have consideration for how we do the same with our businesses on the north side. Entrepreneurship is a big piece of it. There's so much genius and so much brilliance on the north side and support for small business owners and entrepreneurs who want to invest in North Minneapolis. How can we create affordable rent opportunities as the values go up? How can we preserve some of that affordability? And how can we create opportunities for entrepreneurs, especially those who hire from the neighborhood as well? Because folks in the neighborhood, as we elevate incomes, as we elevate life for people, that's good for the whole city, and it's also good for North. So, but a lot of it is predicated on this plan that we put together for how we want economic development and community development to look into.
Thank you, Mayor Hodges. Next, Aswar Rahman. Same question. North Minneapolis is beginning to see displacement and gentrification across its neighborhoods with booming development and the proposed light rail lines speeding up the process. What can the mayor do to assure North Minneapolis residents will not be forced to endure displacement from their homes or a gentrifying neighborhood?
Well, here's the first thing we have to recognize. Gentrification isn't just happening, it is being done. There are interests for whom gentrification is beneficial, and these are the interests that are pushing gentrification ahead. So Jacob Frey went ahead and called it displacement, but it has to be intentional displacement. Intent has nothing to do with it. It is all about the actual act of displacing people in the communities they have invested in for generations, and gentrification comes along, puts up new buildings, and the same families who left the city 60 years ago on the big white flight from Minneapolis are now deciding to come back to the city now that we have built into this beautiful place, this cultural thriving place. So here's what I think. I don't think listening is enough to prevent gentrification. We present listening as if it's this great virtue that is supposed to be like, that is the pinnacle of leadership. That's step one. We need to take actual action. We need to make sure that we stop as a city hall, as a city government. We have to ensure that we stop subsidizing these massive downtown projects because we're only helping speed up gentrification. We have to ensure that we stop creating backdoors for large businesses in Minneapolis. For example, with the $15 minimum wage, which is going to affect. There are already backdoors being built for Target and US Bank. So we keep doing these things as a city government, and then we pretend like, oh, where did gentrification come from? Well, we made it happen in Minneapolis. Here's the solution. Elect a bulldog. Elect somebody who knows what it's like to be in the city of Minneapolis, who has the interest of the city deep near their heart. And what would a bulldog do? Well, for instance, we brought up pollution again. We talk about pollution as being a deep problem in Minneapolis and how we're so great at reducing pollution. If anyone has been following the Northern Meadows Recycling settlement, has anyone been following that? And has anyone noticed how we got $0 towards the children whose lead levels in their blood are now much higher than any other part of the city? Or the 9 times higher asthma rate that we have in our city, or the 3 times higher cancer rate we have in our city. They went behind closed doors, and we didn't have a bulldog in there for the city of Minneapolis. So that's what I'm saying. Elect bold, young, new leadership that will actually stand up for the people of Minneapolis.
Okay.
So I will Ray Dean's response to the same question. The question, North Minneapolis is beginning to see displacement and gentrification across its neighborhood with booming development and the proposed light rail lines speeding up the process. What can the mayor do to assure North Minneapolis residents will not be forced to endure displacement from their homes or gentrifying neighborhood? First, he says, we must acknowledge the larger social forces impacting North Minneapolis residents being pushed out. After World War II, white families living in the cities to given access to affordable, suburban, mostly white communities. Low-wealth families were denied access, largely due to redlining and discriminatory housing practices, and were effectively kept in cities as the tax base disappeared. During the recession, North Minneapolis had the highest mortgage rejection rates in the region, 55%. When banks came for our homes, we organized and pooled our resources to keep them. Now, after ignoring our fight to keep our homes, those who participated in white flight want to move back because they now see value in our community. Displacement and gentrification are the result of white and wealthy individuals wanting to move back to a city that people of color, indigenous people, and low-wealth individuals developed in their absence. As mayor, I will organize with the community to prioritize community interest in long-term housing and development strategies. I will prioritize strengthening renters' rights, passing right of first refusal, the right for tenants to have a say if the landlord attempts to sell a property, and establishing just cause eviction, so they can't kick you out for no reason. I will champion inclusionary zoning and land trust and cooperative housing models, and explore every opportunity for the city to stabilize rent. Overall, I will govern with the philosophy that housing is a human right, and not only do Northsiders have a right to housing, they have a right to determine what it looks like. That's the comment of Frey. Okay, so yeah. Let's move on. I want to say, first of all, again, thank you for being a great audience. Many of you have your, I call them PDAs, but they call smartphones, I think. And so if you got a smartphone, take it out and tell somebody on Twitter or Snapchat or Facebook that you're here right now, involved in an important conversation for our community. So let's use every medium we have to extend this conversation. It's an important conversation. So do that. Let's go on to question number 2. Question number 2. Commercial and nonprofit businesses are critical to the health and survival of a city. What will you do to support and grow a strong and thriving business base in the city? Small, medium, and large businesses have different needs, so please address all sizes. And this time I'll read Representative Dean's comment first and then come down the other direction. So to that question, and I won't read the question each time just to save time as we go along here.
It's actually a question.
It's question 2. Okay.
We have the rest of it.
Did you? Okay. Yeah. Just 1 second here. Okay. So here on this question 4, it says commercial and nonprofit businesses. He says, I see the need of commercial and nonprofit businesses as having several key differences. The current nonprofit sector does a good job of providing some benefits to the north side, but we also need to have a broad range of ownership to create jobs and places for people to shop, eat, and work. There are places we can place larger businesses near Bethune or in the place of manufacturing facilities. For small businesses, we need to incentivize ownership and business creation among low-wealth individuals and by people of color and indigenous folk. This includes allowing light commercial spaces in neighborhoods to provide local entrepreneurs with greater advantages to thrive. Such small storefronts promote foot traffic, shift neighborhood culture, and improve public safety. For medium businesses and nonprofits, I believe the North Side needs increased access to them. This includes accessible public transit, but also bringing more medium-sized businesses to the North Side. We have few options for grocery, for banking, for dining, but throughout the city, medium-sized businesses are thriving. We need to incentivize large businesses to make major investments in the North Side. We should prioritize large manufacturing and industrial spaces on the North Side and convert them into space for different businesses. For example, renewable energy could become a huge business in North Minneapolis and we have the industrial space for that on the north side. I will note that we should have a working relationship with businesses, but also ensure they aren't exploiting workers, the environment, and our shared community. We should also pause and reflect on why we have such a great need for nonprofits to provide services that are a human right. That includes quality health care, safe shelter, and healthy food to the north side. Those are the comments of Representative Ray Dean. So we'll now go to candidate Aswar Rahman.
So I like being on the north side because we can speak our mind and it doesn't seem like people shrink away from the truth. So here's what I'll say. For small business in Minneapolis, the biggest thing we need is an increase in minority business ownership. For medium business in Minneapolis, the biggest thing we need is minority increasing business ownership. And for large businesses, we need an increase in minority business ownership. We are a city with one of the largest disparities in the country, and that is not by accident. Think about this. Minorities in Minneapolis make up 40% of the population. 40%. But when it comes to business ownership, we own less than 10% of the business in Minneapolis. And what do we get from that? We get a situation where the average white family earns $60,000, but the average African American, Somali, or Native American family earns $20,000 a year. So that's 1/3 of one ethnic group in Minneapolis. It's a tale of two cities. So what we need to do in Minneapolis to make sure our nonprofit sector and our business sector grow is to encourage minority business ownership first and foremost. How can we do that? We can do that through direct investments as a city. And this all comes back to figuring out what our priorities are as a city. Do we prioritize small vanity projects in downtown? Do we prioritize areas around the stadium that are generally meant for out-of-town visitors once a week? Or do we prioritize growing jobs and growing businesses in the city of Minneapolis? Because if that's what we care about, that's where we should put our money. So my job as mayor, and we've already found out how we're going to pay for this, and it has to do with reducing investment in downtown and making sure we invest in our businesses. We can direct 5% of the budget. And in that time, we would create over 10,000 new jobs in Minneapolis. And we always could have. We could have done this over the past 8, 12 years. We just didn't because we never had the political will. So for the future of Minneapolis, for the best possible Minneapolis we have to ensure that minority business ownership rate in our city goes up.
Mayor Hodges.
Well, our future lies in making sure that everybody has access to investing in Minneapolis. And that the people who are investing in Minneapolis, that we appreciate them, we support them, and we help people move forward. So to people who already are investing as small business owners, as micro-entrepreneurs, medium business owners, all of you, thank you very much for the investment that you've made. And I have done my best as mayor to make sure that we in City Hall are investing in that future. Because Aswar's right. Like, inclusive growth is the only growth possible in the city of Minneapolis. Demographically, we're going to be majority people of color by mid-century. And the best way to make sure that everybody's benefiting from that is to make sure everybody can invest. And so I spent my first year as mayor walking around in focus groups and small groups, one-on-ones with small business owners, medium business owners in the city of Minneapolis saying, what are we doing right? But more importantly, what are we doing wrong? And from that came the Business Made Simple initiative. We have gotten rid of ordinances that don't need to be there. We have added policies that do. We've added support for business technical assistance programs. And we have made sure, to the extent possible, that the left hand is talking to the right hand, and we have navigators who are helping people wend their way through City Hall as we become a get-to-yes city. Yes, our regulators have to say no sometimes, but I want that followed with a yes, how can we help you get to yes? And what that means is that the barriers that were in the way for everybody, you have to keep your business closed for an extra 6 weeks while you move the grease trap from over here to over there, were especially barriers for people who didn't have the capital to keep that business closed for 6 weeks without having any income coming in. It was a barrier for people whose first language is not English. It was a barrier for people who couldn't get a lobbyist to help them walk around City Hall. We are removing those barriers. So folks who are investing and entrepreneurs of color are more likely to hire people of color. And they are the small businesses are the medium and large size businesses of the future. That's our future, and that's what we've been investing in City Hall, and there's more of that to come in term 2.
Thank you, Mayor. Al Flowers.
First, I want to tell Anwar, they said I couldn't act like a bulldog. So I got to act the way I'm acting. But I'm at the same time, I'm glad that Anwar is doing research and saying what it is, and it's about minority business. And I don't think people in politics or in the community give Senator Champion and Senator Hayden the credit that they deserve right now. And what they did with this equity that I keep talking about, and if you want to keep it going, that's why I'm asking to be the mayor. Yeah, that's the only reason I'm running, because we got something going, and I believe it'll stop under any other candidate because they're not talking about it now. I'm bringing it. And so, and when the mayor talks about Thor coming across the street, I was there. I was instrumental. I was down at the county. And that's why I know what they got resources we need, but we have to go get it. We have to go get it. We have to take the power back as people. This ain't about downtown, the corporation, the unions telling us what to do, the DFL telling us what to do. I'm straight DFL, but they're not going to tell me what to do. I'm going to say what's happening right now. This is what's happening. We got the equity there. We need to look at Neon, Meta, what Mayor Hodges just talked about. They got resources for us to develop small business. It's not out there. It's not out there. That's why I'm running. I keep saying, look it up. Look it up. If you want to start a small business, look up Neon. Look up Meta. Look up Mike Tamale and them over South Minneapolis. They got the resources from the legislature to help you open a small business. That's what this platform is to do. It's to tell you about it, not to read the stats. NY doing great up here. But I'm talking about doing the work. I've been doing the work in small business for small, medium, and large. I've been doing the work. It's a fact. Go the truth to the people.
Thank you, Flowers. Nekima Levy-Pounds.
Well, I would say that number one, I am a small business owner. I own a consulting firm located right on West Broadway. So I understand firsthand some of the challenges that small business owners and small business owners of color face in the city of Minneapolis and in North Minneapolis. A few years ago, I was chair of the Minnesota State Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. During my time as chair, we looked at the issue of unemployment disparity in the city of Minneapolis. I actually had a forum at St. Thomas Law School, asked my law students to follow up and research some of the information that came forward from the experts who were working on these issues. And we honed in specifically on the issues facing minority-owned businesses. What we found were that there were a number of barriers that were built into the system that were preventing these particular businesses from growing. So number one, the majority of minority-owned businesses here, especially black-owned businesses, are actually micro-businesses. They don't even qualify as small businesses under the Small Business Administration. So that's a fraction of the size of a traditional business. Part of the reason that we have micro-businesses is because there is a lack of resources being made accessible to people of color who want to start their own businesses. So yes, Neon is right next to my office. It's wonderful, but Neon is underfunded as far as being able to offer substantial lending opportunities to people. Sometimes they've had to patch together little pieces of loans here and there, and sometimes at high interest rates for people to actually even be able to start and grow their businesses. Minority-owned businesses also have lack of access to networks. So you have folks who are networking in some of the wealthier parts of town. People of color are often not invited to those tables, and that's where the deals are made. So we need to shift that. We also need to change state laws and policies. A study came out that talked about the state of Minnesota being like the 37th worst place in the country for small businesses. So what's happening at the city level is a manifestation of our state's failure to pay attention to small and minority-owned businesses. We need to develop an actual, tangible plan in the city of Minneapolis, listen to small business owners, make sure we're not just throwing out the names of organizations, and putting the resources in place to give business owners the support that they need, because they're going to be the ones hiring those who are unemployed in our community.
Thank you, Nekima Levy-Pounds. Jacob Frey.
So, every single person should have equal access to opportunity in this city. And we talk a whole lot about, $15. And $15 is great, but $15 is still not a life. I want people to have the room to run, to find a great idea, to become an entrepreneur, to start their own business, and then ultimately to live a brilliant life. And I want the communities of color in North Minneapolis that have these great ideas to begin with to stick around after that great idea starts to take shape. And I think that there are mechanisms at the city level that can be used and utilized that aren't presently being used. And whether that's low interest loans, or that's forgivable loans at times to help people start to get off their feet and start running with a great idea. Whether that's access to some of these 350 some odd vacant parcels that we have, or that's utilization of the riverfront. These are all things that we can do. And it's actually been one of the most heartwarming things is to go and knock doors in North Minneapolis and hear great idea after great idea after great idea that I didn't think of, that we absolutely should be implementing. I think a big part of being the mayor is not just pitching a big vision, but it's also listening to those that have one themselves. And I have heard so many just huge, tremendous visions in North Minneapolis, and I think we need to be running with them.
Stay up there, Jacob. Jacob Frey, you'll start with question 3. The question is, relations between the community and the police have deteriorated from bad to worse over the last several years. What steps would you take as mayor to address this in the short term and long term?
Well, I'll start by saying that I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the verdict that came down a couple weeks ago for Philando Castile. It goes without saying, but I think I should say it anyway. Philando would still be alive today if he were white. If I was in that exact position, first off, I would not have been pulled over. Second off, if I was pulled over, there's no way in hell I would have been shot with my girlfriend in the car with me, with a little girl in the back seat, and doing literally every single thing that he should have done to acknowledge the firearm, to treat the person with respect, every single bit of it, and still, he's dead today. And so, I think we need to acknowledge that. Second, I do believe that we can dramatically improve. I don't think that this is a lost cause. I believe in our city, and I believe in the North Side, and I do believe that we can transform and shift the culture of our police departments. And it will take some time, and it will take some effort, but here's some few things that need to happen. Yes, it is about making sure that we have more officers that actually live in our city. Yes, it is making sure that we have officers of color that are on the force. Implicit bias training is a huge deal, and I think we need to be expanding on it because, when every one of us has implicit bias, including myself, and that bias comes out more when you're tired or you're hungry or you're sick or you're forced to make a split-second decision. But beyond that, Nekima correctly talks about explicit bias as well, and that does exist, and we need to root that out wherever it does. And so, as we do so on the North Side, I think the final piece is that we start building relationships with the officers themselves. Making sure that the beats are narrow, they have the time to get out of the car, to engage with the community, to get to know the small local businesses, to get to know the residents and the people on the street. And once you've built those relationships, it is statistically proven that 1, you're better able to de-escalate situations, but 2, you're able to better create a safe community for every single person.
Thank you, Joseph Frey. Nekima Levy-Pounds.
All right, so in Sunday's edition of the Star Tribune, I actually wrote an op-ed that focused on, after the Yanez verdict, how do we prevent further injustices from happening? And I listed 6 proposals that need to come forward. The first one is getting real and talking about race. Knowing that people are going to be uncomfortable, but you cannot address issues of police misconduct and barriers between the police and communities of color without being honest about the racial discrimination that plays a role in some of the things that are happening at the street level. Beyond that, we need significant policy changes. So even in today's Star Tribune, there is an article entitled, "Minneapolis Cops Retreat from a Stricter Deadly Force Policy." So here we are hearing about us doing more work than other parts of the country in terms of police reform, which I completely disagree with. But then you have an article in the Star Tribune saying our cops are retreating from a stricter deadly force policy. After the shooting death of Jamar Clark in November of 2015, why wouldn't we want to see a stricter deadly force policy? This was a situation in which this young man is standing on the street, and officers initiated a violent encounter with this man, grabbing him from behind and slamming him to the ground. And within 61 seconds, he was dead. Now, how could they have possibly been justified in using deadly force in that situation when they initiated the contact and then claimed that they were afraid? Saw the same thing happening in the Philando Castile case, where the officer approached that vehicle. They're minding their own business. So you initiate contact, then you use deadly force, then you blame the person. Well, frankly, we're tired of these patterns happening. The union should not be allowed to get away with retreating from a deadly force policy. So we need a leader in the city of Minneapolis that will stand up to the union and say, we need to value human life above your egos. We need to make sure we care about the people of this city. And we need to make sure our training is up to par. I would want to see the 25 officers with the worst track records of abusing people incentivized to get off the force and go somewhere else, so that we can actually build a culture that values people and have a model of community policing, which right now we don't currently have. You have officers handing out hot dogs and bikes, and we claim that's community policing. That's not community policing. There's actual community policing models that are effective in other parts of the country if we would only begin to implement them. So I've researched this issue for a long time. I've fought for policy changes. I've stood up to the police directly. And change will come when I become your next mayor. Believe that.
Flowers?
It sounds good, but it just ain't gonna happen because it's a state issue. No, you just got to be real. We're gonna tell the truth. No, that's a state issue. Police say they're in fear. You got to change state law. You got to change the state law. That ain't the city. You got to change the state law. It's on the books at the state. So we can do whatever we want here, but you got to change it on the state level. And I'm a person that I've been through police brutality. I know what it is. But I know we still need the police. I know we got to find a way to work this situation out, because it's very explosive. You could get people to rise up anytime you say something like my good friend Professor Pounds is saying here. But you got to be realistic in what you can do, and we have to go to the state. This young lady just said she researched me, and when she researched me, I didn't look good, did I? Yeah, I didn't look good. She was researching, and she seen when I got beat in my own home. But I know we got to do something different, and we got to fight back. We fight back as a community. We can use that. The mayor can use that bully pulpit by maybe changing the police chief or using the federal mediation agreement that we did. I was on the federal mediation team for 5 years with the federal government. It's a plan down at City Hall that they will not do. The last mayor, R.T. Ryback, when he was there, he stopped it, and it had American Indian, Latinos, the Hmong community, the African American, the mental health community. It's all in that plan. It's a plan downtown at City Hall right now called a federal mediation agreement that they won't adapt, and that the mayor should pull that out and make them go through each point and do it. It was signed by community members, leaders all over, and she got that right now. Some of the stuff we talking about, they have it right now. They talk about, my good friend Jacob talks about the parcel. Well, give them up. Let the community work, and let's get them right now. We don't have to wait till November. Let's get the parcels right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Hodges?
One of the most searing things we have been through as a city and as a community was the shooting of DeMar Clark and the 18-day precinct occupation that happened after that. And that disruption was incredibly powerful. And that organizing was incredibly important. And what's happened subsequent to that is I have been able to help us, lead us through as a city, taking that power, taking that focus, taking that energy, and accelerating the pace of change at City Hall so that we have law enforcement and community working together for public safety, and so that we are building public trust. Every 911 responder, police responder, has a body camera governed by a policy that the community helped develop. We have changed our training. Every officer has had procedural justice training, has had implicit bias training, has had crisis intervention training. We are building that in to how we do the work moving forward. We have changed our sanctity of life policy. We have a duty to intervene policy. And we are investing in community policing because it's not just making sure that we are having positive interactions, although we now measure those. But it is making sure that officers don't have to go from call to call and they can stay and talk to people and build those relationships, and we're investing in that. But the other thing I heard after the occupation and during the occupation was that people wanted more say in public safety in their neighborhoods. They wanted more responsibility. Folks, you wanted more responsibility. I invested $1 million in those strategies. The last time I was in this basement was about a month ago, when we did a call-in for our group violence intervention strategy, which I would say more about if I had more than 10 seconds. But we are also in the process of distributing the dollars to West Broadway for the community-based strategies that the community generated, the community chose, and the community will implement. City Hall didn't make those decisions, the community did. And it's the first time in the country any mayor has said, all right, how do you guys want to do it? How do you want to handle it? And you are doing it. That is what gets to happen moving forward, is we get to continue to make sure that law enforcement and that public safety is about more than just law enforcement, that it's law enforcement and community together, because that's also how we build community trust. Culture change, we are in the midst of that too, and we are pushing it as fast as hard as we can, more than any other city in the country.
Thank you, Mayor. Aswar?
Yes, I'm going to go inside. Okay, it would be funny if it wasn't so serious. We almost had an appointment of the 4th Precinct's head by text message, which was, of course, rescinded by another text message. Then we had the fiasco, and the whole country watched as we were reminded that our civilian head of the police department simply does not act like the civilian head of the police department. The first thing in the short term that we need to do in the city of Minneapolis for the next mayor is to ensure that, reaffirm that there is a civilian head of the police department. Bring the whole police department in and say the union does not control the police department. The people of the city of Minneapolis do, and the mayor as the representative is their civilian head. That's the first step. The second thing is, has anyone seen this map? And has anyone in here heard a gunshot recently? In North Minneapolis, in South Minneapolis, and by the way, this looks just like the poverty map of Minneapolis too. We have had a 12% rise in violent crime in 2 years and no one wants to talk about it. The police are simply too focused on stopping people in their cars and messing up lives, daily life for people, instead of focusing on the violent crime in the city of Minneapolis. So as your next mayor, my goal is to mandate a full refocusing of our strategy towards reduction in violent crime. Forget the petty things, forget just stop and searches, forget petty drug possessions. That is not what the police department was originally intended for. It is to control violent crime in the city of Minneapolis. Okay. And the third thing we need to do, and I say this as somebody who grew up at 42nd and Humboldt and never saw a police officer over there who wasn't white. We need to start diversifying and localizing the police department. We have to make sure that every single young person in the city of Minneapolis knows how to join the police department, that we have recruitment sessions in high schools, not just through this upper crust of retired military officers or police officers from out of town who are in other police departments. We have to direct our recruitment strategy in Minneapolis towards into the city. And if we do that, within 4 years, we will start to see the change. It'll take more time than that. There'll be a lot of pushback, but that is what the mayor's office is for. They are the civilian head of the police department. I say it's about time it started acting like one.
Thank you. So this is the written response of Representative Frey Dean. It is clear that we need to change the culture of the Minneapolis Police Department. We need a chief who understands that our policing is not free of the historic racism and bias that impacts our other institutions. We need to address bias and militarization in our policing. Moreover, we need to fundamentally rethink our approach to policing. Minneapolis Police Department needs to work closely with communities of color and non-police safety experts when evaluating their responses. Officers need to prioritize de-escalation. They need to be trained in handling mental health crisis. In the case of the 4th Precinct occupation, MPD should have protected the occupation and respected the right to assemble. Instead, they maced and shot rubber bullets at protesters. We must understand that crime is a product of scarcity. When a community does not have access to jobs, health care, education, and wealth, crime follows. Public safety will not result from putting more officers on the street. Public safety can only be improved by addressing scarcity. divesting from police and investing directly in the community. My administration will prioritize transparency. The community will have a voice, and we will not discredit the voices of witnesses, community members, and activists. I will fight with you to strengthen implicit bias training and anti-bias hiring practices, enforce discipline of officers for misconduct uniformly, and seek to invest resources in alternatives to policing, such as mental health services, rather than increasing the police force. That, the comment of Representative Ray Dean, a candidate. So for the last two questions, is everybody okay? This is pretty good. This is a good evening. A lot of great information, great presentations by the candidates. I want to thank you all for doing a good job in presenting your analysis and showing the differences in your approach. I'm going to combine the last two questions in the interest of time. They're both related to development and business. Question 4 said, what kind of development would you as mayor like to see in North Minneapolis? Question 5 was, compared to other parts of the city, in particular, certain neighborhoods of North have very poor access to grocery stores and fresh foods, while at the same time, we have an overabundance of convenience stores. What can the mayor do to address this disparity? So, my synopsis, how do you develop North Minneapolis, and how do you sort of eliminate or challenge or address the issue of the overabundance of convenience stores and the lack of good grocery and fresh foods? I'm going to start with Jacob Frey. I said your name right this time. Okay, and I apologize for mistaking the second first time.
The North Side is just rocking with potential right now. And I think the trick is going to be that as we grow, as unused parcels are developed, it's developed in an equitable fashion that includes every single person in the process. And whether that means community benefits agreements as development is rolled out, or that means a diversity of every single kind of housing and business structure, we absolutely can do that. And so let's talk about the specifics on how you get it done. Inevitably, the North Side has not seen the development and investment that other cities have. That other parts of the city has. I represent the 3rd Ward right now, which is a combination of, Northeast and the Arts District, downtown, North Loop, Marcy Homes, and this is an area that's probably seen about 40% of the growth and investment in the entire city. I do think that we need to find ways to connect that engine of this city to the heart of this city. And as we encourage new businesses to come into North Minneapolis, I think it should be entrepreneurs from the community, but I also think we need to be making zip code hiring. And so again, how do you do that? How do you do that? A lot of it does come back to incentives. And how do we incentivize that kind of development? Well, we've had a long, violent history of this TIF, tax incremental financing pendulum, swinging back and forth. Having every single property with TIF and then moving back to barely ever using it, which I think is where we are right now. Well, here's what I believe in. I do believe in using tax incremental financing to generate market investments on the North Side. Simultaneously, I believe in tax incremental financing to generate affordable developments in other areas of the city, especially those that are of middle and upper income. And as we use those financing mechanisms, we can trigger the development that we want that is community-based.
Thank you. Nekima Levy-Pounds.
It's very clear to me that North Minneapolis needs an advocate who is going to champion issues that impact the people of this community. Too often at City Hall, we have folks who either don't care about what's happening in North Minneapolis or who show up for photo ops or during election season. But in the interim, we don't have anybody that's actually championing these issues of development that don't include things like gentrification and displacement. One example of a person that I look at in terms of what I would want to see as far as development is Magic Johnson. So I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, and one of the things that was happening was there was a lot of gang violence and poverty in my community. Magic Johnson came in to the LA and Inglewood area. He built movie theaters, brought Starbucks and other types of development so that the people living in those communities could have access to the resources and the goods that they wanted to see in their own community. He said, instead of our black dollar cycling out of our community every few minutes, We need to keep our dollars within the community so that we can generate wealth and create jobs and access to economic opportunity. And the developments that he created actually brought more development to the Los Angeles area, particularly the inner city. So what we need is a renaissance in North Minneapolis where we're taking a holistic approach. Not just if somebody submits a proposal, but where you have city leaders who are actually working hand in hand with the people to develop a plan for neighborhoods where we can walk down the street if we want to go get coffee, if we want to go to a restaurant, if you want to go to a happy hour, if you want to walk to your job and be paid a living wage. Those are the kinds of things that we need to have in place. But too often, North Minneapolis is being neglected. What we're hearing is lip service and false promises that we've heard time and time again. I will be a leader, not just sitting at the table, but standing up for the people of North Minneapolis and making sure that we get what we deserve. Not more programs that are focused on job training when people actually need jobs. It's time out for all of that. It's time for us to be able to build wealth in our own community. And as a leader, I will make sure that that happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Nekima. Al Flores.
Well, I got a different take on it because I've been in the community, north and south, for many years, but, doing political activist work. I know people that have been trying to push the city, but when you had a mayor like R.T. Ryback that pushed back and they pick your leaders here. What they do in Minneapolis, they pick your leaders. They say, I'm going to deal with this person, that person. The mayor even talked about a crime plan that it wasn't a good public safety plan because it wasn't about us. And the plan is all there on all different areas of the city. And I said that we should, I was trying to work with the Minneapolis Urban League to bring everybody together. You can't have an individual leading us. You got to have an organization because we might be gone. You can, if you get somebody get a big contract up here and they say come to Seattle, they're going to be gone. They're not going to be here. So you got to make sure that your organization, whether you're in the Hmong community, the Latino, or the African American, you got to strengthen your organizations like the Urban League, like Sabathani. So I've seen people do the work. I've seen people working over and over for the last 15 years fighting. It's a fight. It's not as easy as you can say, I'm going to go do this. Because then you still got to deal with the other people. So other people in the city council, that's what the mayor have to do. So you can't do everything. But if we all come together, we can do what we want. If everybody come together, we can do what we want. And so that's what I would like to do. I'd like to see some youth centers. I'd like to see some youth centers for all our dying kids that's dying in gun violence every day. There's gun violence going on, killing our babies every day. And I started this off talking about that. So I want to see some youth centers. If you can build a football stadium, you can build a baseball stadium, you can build some youth centers for these young kids to have somewhere to go instead of being 100 kids up at the library on every day. Come on now. Just in this community over north, that happens because when in November, whoever, I guarantee you, as soon as they get elected, they're going to go back. That's why you need to elect me. I've been doing the work.
Mayor Hodges.
It does matter what the mayor's vision is for development anywhere in the city, including North Minneapolis. But what I've heard clearly from the community is that what really matters in North Minneapolis is what is the community's vision for development? What is the community's vision for how quickly and where and what develops and happens in North Minneapolis? That's one of the reasons I pursued the Promise Zone designation, is I knew it was a mechanism through which we could bring the community together to generate a plan for the future of North Minneapolis that was by the people of North Minneapolis and by the residents and the people who've been living here for years and years. It's why we have an economic development committee for the Promise Zone, and there are people who stand ready and who have been helping lay the groundwork to create a community development vision for North Minneapolis that's based on what North wants. And it's in that spirit that I offer what my values are about how we develop and how we can support development. I think it's one of the most important things the city can do is public investment in the public good. When we did the 20-year Parks and Streets investment plan, with the parks and the council and me coming together, one, I fought to make sure that, yes, the parks got their funding, but also that our city streets did, and that equity is at the heart of it. that North Minneapolis is going to get more investment more quickly because North Minneapolis has not historically gotten the development that it needed in infrastructure or anything else. Yes, we also need to make sure that investment happens here and that the city is investing, that the city is helping make sure other people can invest. What incentives can we provide? What tools do we have in our toolbox? I'm glad to hear Councilmember Frey saying he supports TIF. I have long said in places where the market is not functioning for people, that is where we get to use that set of tools as one of many that we get to have in our toolbox. And housing. The tools that we have at our disposal for housing, which we answered in other questions, all of that is important to use moving forward. But the reason that I've been moving forward with those tools is because that's what I've been hearing from the community. That's what gets to continue moving forward with me as mayor.
Thank you, Hodges. Aswar Rahman.
There we go. So if Minneapolis' City Hall was a person, it would be the kind of person who wants to be a great basketball player but refuses to ever pick up a basketball. And they have the biggest visions, the biggest dreams in the world. They have the resources in front of them, the balls right in front of them. They're like, yeah, I'll pick it up maybe 10 years down the road or something. That's not how a city should be run, nor that's not how a person's life should be run. If we really wanted to support development in our city, we would be creating small business grants and we would be giving them out to entrepreneurs within the city of Minneapolis, particularly low-wealth entrepreneurs coming out of the city of Minneapolis. And here's the thing. These grants, I mean, my campaign, we're offering 2,500 of them. And that's not even taking that, it's cutting out one downtown development project in order to fund 2,500 small business grants in the city of Minneapolis. That is something that can be done. It just isn't done because of the lack of motivation we have at City Hall. Besides that, we're also a city where whenever we get a chance to put a contract out, let's say we want to build a new building, we say we want to invest in local businesses that are able to fulfill that contract. Nonetheless, the funding almost always ends up somewhere out of town. Case in point, there's a new development being built downtown, and it's to house homeless youth, which is a great, noble intention. However, the contract for it is being given to a West Metro development company, and of course, if you scroll through the list of over 100 employees of this company, not a single person of color in that entire company. That's the kind of city we are at the moment. So what I'm saying is, if we are truly serious about it, and it has to come from the mayor in Minneapolis controls the budget, the mayor gets to set the direction of policy, we can do this in 4 years. We just cannot afford the same old type of leadership that we've been recycling for the past 30 years that says that listening is just enough and then refuses to take responsibility for their actions, and that makes sure that for once we start investing in the people of Minneapolis.
That's real.
Thank you. So here is Ray Dean's response to the same question. First, it's essential, our philosophy around development on the north side be by the community and for the community. Too often we have seen the city deciding what is best for Northside residents rather than investing in community leadership, community ideas, and community solutions. It is time predominantly white city leadership stop deciding what is best for the North Side communities with an intentional focus on the black and with intentional focus on the black and Hmong communities here. As mayor, I will champion development that remedies systemic inequity in our city and builds community wealth. As it stands, the average North Minneapolis resident has an average income half of the rest of the city. I believe partnering with the community to increase community-owned businesses, nonprofits, and organizations is essential to building wealth in the community and decreasing wealth disparities. A few of my priorities include: 1, putting out RFPs for city-owned property that is vacant or underutilized. 2, increasing the number of and supporting existing black-owned businesses on the north side. I pledge to move my money back to the black-owned credit union expected to open in 2019 and will continue to support these projects personally and in my capacity as mayor. And finally, continuing to support community development on the Capri block, supporting Northside Theater and Arts. That's the comment of Ray Dean. Well, that's the list of questions. This has been a good exercise in learning and discussing issues for our community. We're going to ask the candidates to do a 2-minute close. a summary of your main message you want residents here to leave with. Before I do that, is there anybody with a burning question in the audience?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to, with the permission of our host, take about 3 questions. And the questions have to be very short. I'm going to ask the questioners to come over here. All right. 1, 2, 3. 3. 3 is all I have.
Thank you.
The questions have to be 30 seconds, all 3 questions at one time. And I'll ask the candidates to address those questions in your closing remarks. Say your name and your question, please. 30 seconds.
My name is Donna Pearson.
Come this way. Come here and speak that way.
My name is Donna Pearson, and I want to know what you're going to do about why the Dollar Trees in this community do not any longer accept EBT.
Thank you. Next question, you want to say your name and your question.
Michael Cheney, Project Sweetie Pie. We spent 4 years on the state level trying to get the community, the state to recognize urban farming and the power of food in this community. United Way General Mills just invested $1.5 million in building a food system in North Minneapolis. What would you do to follow the lead, that kind of leadership?
Last question, 30 seconds.
The infill program that the city's sponsoring for the vacant lots in North Minneapolis will eventually be the death knell for the urban agriculture program, various programs that are functioning in North Minneapolis. We have a food desert here.
10 seconds.
Food desert. The urban agriculture program can go a long way towards abating that and healing the food problems here in North Minneapolis.
The question?
Where is the conversation and the plan for urban agriculture
Thank you.
in the city of Minneapolis?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question, please.
Go ahead, sir.
My question is, what are you all going to do? Okay. I'm Michael, by the way. And my question is, what are you all going to do about my 15-year-old daughter who just hung herself due to her being questioned without a parent, legal help, or any of that? The procedures were not fully taken right. They were not followed, nor guidelines were followed. So I'm trying to figure out what is it that the mayors, cities, or whoever will be willing to do about my daughter and her death.
Thank you for the question. Thank you. Sorry about your door. Thank you. So that's it. I want to have each of you candidates make a closing statement that captures the energy, the ideas, and the concerns of these members of our community. Start with you, Jacob Frey.
Well, before I forget, I want to thank the Urban League for having us. I think that this course is essential. So to kind of go through each one of them. The first question was why is the Dollar Tree no longer accepting EBT? And I'll give you the honest answer is I don't know. But I will definitely look into it. The second question was regarding urban ag and some of the great work that Project Sweetie Pie has been doing for quite some time now. You know, I believe the community gardens, they go far beyond providing and erasing the food desert that we presently have in some areas of our city, and specifically North Minneapolis. I think they go a long way towards building community. And I've actually done work specifically on this topic at the city council. I think there's a lot of people that talk about doing things. Well, we've gotten them done. And on this particular time, we knew that we had 350 some odd parcels on the north side that were vacant and were city owned. And we knew that a huge percentage of those 350 parcels were not developable. Whether that was for financial reasons or that was because of the shape of the parcel. And what I was able to do is I authored a staff direction that opened every one of them up to community gardening and even nonprofit and for-profit gardening as well. So every single person in North Minneapolis has access to use them and even to make a little bit of money in doing so. So we made that happen. And now there's a little bit more work that needs to be done, to your point, sir, which is that I think we need to be decreasing the rent for those parcels because it costs somewhere about $2,000 to $3,000 a year for the city to maintain them, to plow the snow, to pick up the trash, etc. Now, I think the city would be making a difference doubly because one, we would be generating a community space. Two, we would be growing food for the community. And three, we would be actually decreasing the city's funds. And the final issue, which I believe your name was Michael, pointed out, I'm so sorry. You know, recognize that in my life I'm sacked with a whole ton of white privilege. And, I've never had to experience anything like that. But it is disheartening to hear when someone is. And, before I was on the city council, I worked as a civil rights attorney, represented people on death row and represented people on the north side following the tornado. And what I saw was very much a tale of two cities, where some areas got granite countertops and organic fruit in the fridge, and then there's another part of the city that is struggling. The question was, I guess, what is the city going to do about that in this particular instance? Well, I think we can make better decisions going forward, so that more people don't need to suffer the same unnecessary fate as your daughter.
Thank you. Nekima Levy-Pounds.
Just make a clarification.
No, please, nope.
Selling the lots.
Go ahead.
Selling them. They're gone. So there won't be any urban agriculture. They're
Nekima?
selling them.
Are you done now?
Yeah,
You
go
done
ahead,
now?
please.
So we can move on. Okay. So what I heard in terms of the themes running through the questions was about the second and third class treatment that African Americans and other people of color receive. Whether it's in terms of having to live in a food desert, not being given proper access to land, whether somebody wants to build a home, develop property, or engage in urban agriculture. And then finally, some of the trappings within our criminal justice system, such as what Michael's daughter faced. When you look at those issues, all of them are a manifestation of the fact that we have two different Minneapolises in terms of how people fare, one for people of color and one for white folks. And across every key indicator of quality of life, whether it's education, economics, unemployment rates, the list, business ownership, the list goes on and on. What we see is a tale of two cities, something that I have been talking about for many years, writing about and advocating about. The reality is that we need a mayor who understands equity, not just as a talking head, not just someone who's giving this rhetoric while claiming white privilege. You need somebody who actually lives it as a woman of color, who has stood in the trenches with the people to feel their pain, to understand their pain, and to use that as a catalyst for fighting for justice under the law. I have pushed for changes to our low-level ordinances in the city. Heard people talk about it, but I've actually pushed for changes where we got laws against spitting and lurking off the books. Why did it take an outside person outside of government to see that a law against spitting from the 1800s should not be on the books because it was used as a pretext to stop and frisk young African-American men? I've actually helped to establish a program in St. Paul that ran successfully for 4 years called Brotherhood, Inc., focused on young black men who had been in the criminal justice system in gangs and at risk. And what we did was took some of their street skills, transferred them into above ground skills where they could sell coffee and other products and cater and actually be able to provide income for their families and not be caught in the cycle of the criminal justice system. That's the kind of program I want to bring to Minneapolis. I've also stood alongside mothers and children at Minneapolis public schools advocating for equitable treatment of children of color and children with disabilities and special needs. When you think about the issues that Michael brought up with his daughter, part of that has to do with the fact that our children are seen as expendable within the criminal justice system. I have fought for juvenile justice reform and pushed back against even public defenders who are saying that it's okay to question children without their parents. This has been going on for years, and people talk about the fact that it's okay. And the reality is it's not okay. Our children deserve equal protection under the law so we can prevent those types of tragedies from happening. So as your mayor, you can see that I have been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, and would take it to the next level inside of City Hall. Not just talk, but actual action based on experience. Thank you.
Al Flowers.
Wow. On the first question, that's, where the EBT, how we gonna deal with the EBT?
Talk louder.
And I don't, and I'm not laughing. I'm not gonna laugh about it because it ain't like I ain't seen no EBT card before. So I'm not gonna sit here and play that. And even some of the richest people go back down and they see a EBT card, but you won't never know about it. And there's more white people on food stamps than black. So let's remember that when somebody asks that question, she just asked a question. I don't know why the Dollar Tree doing that. On the second question of urban ag, talking about the urban ag, I've been there, Michael Chaney. I've been over at the legislature watching him push that, and I believe that. I agree with that, trying to get fresh food back into the communities in some of these urban areas, because I know at these stores on the corner where they selling everything what black people mostly want. Ain't nobody going in the store but black people. Going in there buying that fried chicken, Italian beef with hot peppers on it, and it ain't like I ain't bought none. So I want to say that's what it is. So what Michael is doing, we want to make sure we support. As far as Michael, Jennifer, the mother, before you leave, they should know who the mother is of that 15-year-old daughter. I know it's tough. It's a tough time, but that's the mother of Christy. That's her mother right there, and she's still struggling. She haven't even buried her baby, so I won't politicize or bring this. But I'm glad you came out and get in the fight. Get in the fight, and don't let your daughter die in vain. And I told you that earlier when we talked. Don't let her die in vain. No matter what she did nothing yet. Don't let your daughter die in vain, and I'll stand there with you. So, and that was the three questions. We gotta be treated fairly by the police. We gotta be treated fairly. This young baby died. I want to talk about that because this young baby died. And it's not about what she was into, because like I said earlier, I had a daughter got killed, I had a daughter struggle. It's not about what she got into, it's when she died on the day once she left a police station. She died the same day. She hung herself. Her mom told me the whole story. She hung her, she went home and you opened the door. So everybody out here, imagine that you open the door and your baby is laying there hanging and you can't untie the knot. So imagine what's happening here. And then imagine a city not telling you. Imagine a city not telling you, and they keep it under wraps. It was so bad. I called Mr. Ron Edwards, who's a longtime civil rights activist. I had to turn that over to him because I couldn't deal with that because my daughter had died. So I'm getting ready to cry too. I got some feelings, so my emotions were there. So I turned it over to him. So this mother can at least know what happened to our baby. It happened on the 14th, and we didn't know about it until this past Friday. But the city knew, the police knew, and they wanted to keep it underground because they don't want us to know that. But you can be in the white community, and a 15-year-old baby hang themselves, and you are not going to be told. So we got to. This is some of the things we got to fight about. I'm glad the mother came out to be a part of the community and figure out how we going to help each other. So that's my statement, and I'm telling you, I'm going to fight to the end about telling the truth. When they talk about TIP, it's on my paper. When you talk about TIP, what you can do with TIP, they talking about it now. Now we talk about parcels that we gonna work on that now. I'm not gonna wait till November. I'm gonna talk to Mr. Frey, Councilmember Frey, sooner than November. But we need to be working on that now. We need some community centers in this area in North Minneapolis. We can build it. You build a stadium. You build stadiums. You can build a couple of community centers.
Well, I want to say to Michael and Jennifer at the back and to you, I'm just so sorry about your daughter. And I don't know the story, and I am happy to ask the questions that need asking.
Mayor, can I ask Jennifer? Jennifer, can you let Jennifer listen? The mayor is talking to Jennifer right now.
I was just saying I'm sorry, and I don't know the story, and I'm happy to ask questions that need asking, but that is unimaginable, and I am so sorry for what happened and the pain that you have. I honestly don't know what else to say about something as awful as that. These questions, the other questions that got asked were deeply about choices, and especially food choices in North Minneapolis. And how do we create them? And how do we create good options and opportunities? And how do we reimagine how we think about food systems everywhere, but particularly in North Minneapolis? And Michael, you have been at the forefront of that work. And I will say this, I don't know the answer, Donna, about EBT at the Dollar Tree, but I do know they take it at the North Minneapolis Farmers Market. Right? And that is a future that we're trying to imagine here. But the creation of all of this takes actual transformational leadership. Because every change, people object to change in general. When it is about equity and it is about race, It has an extra charge to it, and it has an extra persistence to it. And the resistance doesn't always look like, oh, I don't want to help people of color. It looks like asking somebody, how are we going to change our pipeline in this department, and having a piece of paper slid in front of me saying, well, nothing we're doing is illegal. And I said, well, that's not good enough. We have differential outcomes between white people and people of color, and even if they're supposedly legal, they mean that we are not hiring some people of color who would be great for these jobs in this department. How are we going to change either the credential for those jobs, the people who are creating those evaluations, who's making those decisions, and how and where are people being let go along the way, and how do we change that whole system? That requires leadership that is in there every day, that knows the details, that recognizes resistance when she sees it, and is persistent and moves through it so that we can get to a good other side. So that we can, because we face this with urban ag and changing some of the rules and regulations about urban ag, so that we can, and we have been pushing and making sure that we can have that balance between the housing we want and the food we want in North Minneapolis. That takes transformational leadership. It takes somebody who can have that vision and persist through it. Yes, in the big moments where you get to give a speech or you're talking to a camera, but more importantly, in the moments when you're sitting with city staff and they're saying something that sounds reasonable and you know it's not. And they don't even mean to be in the way, but we have to find a different and better way forward. And every moment in between, finding the partners who will sit at the table with you so that you can have a Parks and Streets agreement that has equity at the heart of it. All of that is important, and that is the leadership that I have brought to City Hall. It is the leadership I will continue to bring to City Hall, because transformation takes time and persistence, energy, vision, and I've been bringing all of that, and communication. It takes that kind of leadership to get where we're going to go. And no one likes it. It's uncomfortable. And I have been through that kind of uncomfortable change. Change and transformation takes time and makes everyone uncomfortable. And on the other side, we are better. I have been sober since I was 19 years old. I know what it's like to walk through some really horrible stuff and come out better and unlimited on the other side. And that experience is what I'm bringing to City Hall to make sure that together we are getting to a better other side for the city. And in that spirit, I ask for your vote, your endorsement, your support for a second term. Thank you.
Thank you. Aswar Rahman.
And to make up for everyone else going 5 minutes over time, I'll keep it brief. So I am the son of an immigrant. I came here when I was 6. Dollar Tree was one of the few places where we could actually afford something for a long time. So, the suicide's a little touch me. Anyways, the EBT was canceled because of a technicality, and I think City dropped the ball on that. It's actually a resource for many low-income people. I actually even go there many days now myself, because sometimes it doesn't make sense to spend. Yeah, anyways. So we need to fix the technicality. When it comes to urban agriculture, sir, I will tell you very frankly, I only have a surface level understanding of it, so as a leader, what I would do is, I would find a time for you and me to get coffee, and I would tell you to bring all the data you have. And most importantly, I'd ask for what specific ideas you have for improvement on the city level, and I would listen, and I'd allocate resources. And the last thing, and did Michael leave?
No.
Michael's still here? Yeah. Michael, I can tell you this. If I was your mayor right now, I would ask you for the badge number. And I wouldn't go to sleep until we had the police officer in my mayor's office. And I would call you in, and I'd call your wife in. And we would sit there and we'd talk to this man. And we'd let him understand that you lost your daughter. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to close with an abbreviated comment from the last candidate, Radine, who wasn't here. As I said in my opening, Northsiders have been long organizing to develop community solutions where the city has not. I'm proud of Northside community residents and organizations that have been working on the issue of food insecurity for a long time. The good news is that the community has made gains in reversing food insecurity. I'm optimistic about the new grocery store run by Pillsbury United Communities up near Humboldt and the Worth Co-op. These projects will be much needed. As mayor, I'll continue to support community-driven initiatives such as these. While the city has done important work on the issue of access to good food, passing the Staples Food Ordinance to require corner stores to stock healthy food, increasing funding for the city's health inspection program, and expanding access to farmers markets and mobile markets, and improving data collection on them, and providing loans to co-ops through community planning and economic development department priorities. Still, there's a long way to go to decrease food insecurity and eliminate hunger among Northsiders. We must continue to invest in the community education programs and outreach to improve transportation routes to provide quality food access and lift wages so residents can afford quality food. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been a great audience. This has been a great gathering. Thank you all for being here. Thanks again. Give a round of applause to the sponsors of tonight's event: Harrison Neighborhood Association, Heritage Park Neighborhood Association, Northside Neighborhood Council, Lao Assistance Center, Neighbors Organizing for Change, West Market District, and the Minneapolis Urban League. Thank you and good night. Thank you. Thank you. An announcement: Worth Co-op has a soft opening August 4th, so pay attention and show up and be there.
I'll fill you in on this whole urban agriculture and